Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Lunatics Radio Hour podcast. I'm Abby Brinker, sitting here with Alan Kudan.
Hello.
And today we have a unique topic to discuss with you.
Yeah, I was a little baffled by this one.
Today we're going to talk about Truman Show delusion, or the belief that your life is an always-on reality show with millions of viewers. Of course, we're also going to talk about The Truman Show, because that's a big influence here. Typically, our remit on this podcast is to discuss the history of horror and how history influences horror. But in this case, we are talking about how a film has impacted society.
So this was this a thing before the movie? Sorry, what year did The Truman Show come out?
1998.
Okay, so obviously they probably didn't call Truman Show disorder, but was it even in like the human zeitgeist of mental disorders before 1998?
So the net of what we're going to talk about today.
The net?
The net. The nutshell. The
Net,
too long
net?
didn't read. Yeah. It's a saying.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it short for something?
The
Net.
Delusions have always existed, right? Paranoia, all these things have existed before The Truman Show came out.
Are you sure?
There's a group of mental practitioners who believed that The Truman Show sort of reskinned these delusions for certain cases, for a couple hundred cases that were reported. And we're going to talk a lot about this, but that's sort of the takeaway.
Okay, so the movie just kind of like put a nice little label on it.
Or the movie gave these delusions a certain spin, but in a different society, in a different time period, it wouldn't have been a reality TV show. It would have been that people thought a different thing was happening to them.
Like what? So say it's Little House on the Prairie. Someone has this disorder. What would it look like?
I mean, it's a delusion. So a belief that is not founded in reality and has no proof.
I understand what a delusion is, but without the context of reality television.
It could be anything.
Like what?
It could be that they thought that all of the
Cows?
cows near the prairie were poisonous.
Poisonous?
It could be anything.
So you can't eat the cows.
Right. Poisonous.
Not venomous.
Right.
So, I mean, that's really simple. You just don't eat the cows.
Yeah. When are cows biting people?
Sure.
You only interact with cows typically unless you're a farmer, by eating them.
That's fair. Okay, I understand. Well, I mean, no, you milk them. Dairy cows.
Sure.
You grew up on the world's largest... You grew up on the nation's oldest dairy farm.
Yeah.
I'd think you would know this.
I do know it. Okay.
Cows are neither venomous nor poisonous.
That's why it's a delusion.
I understand.
There's a catch-22 around this concept. Is the Truman Show delusion a modern variation of psychosis, or are actual reality shows and films like The Truman Show causing an uptick in this belief? We're going to talk through it. Two things I want to say. Of course, this episode is going to contain spoilers for The Truman Show. Definitely watch that movie if you have not before you listen to this.
It's very good.
Very good.
I'm not going to say it's Jim Carrey at his finest, because that's probably The Mask. However, he does a great job.
Yeah, I really, truly love The Truman Show quite deeply.
I don't know. He was a classic 90s comedy actor that, like, as time went on, especially towards late 90s, early 2000s, he started branching into roles that had a lot more depth.
Yep, we're going to talk about that for sure. The other thing that I want to say is that Alan and I are not doctors. We are not psychologists. We are not psychiatrists. So what we're doing today is repeating and talking about research that other more qualified professionals and doctors and journalists have put together. Nothing we say anyone should ever take seriously.
Yes, but we are expert armchair analysts.
There you go. Today's sources. Of course, The Truman Show, the film from 1998, directed by Peter Weir. A Psychology Today article by Mark D. Griffiths, Ph.D., The Truman Show Delusion. A New Yorker article by Andrew Marantz called Unreality Star. A WebMD article by Suzanne Wright called The Truman Show Delusion. A New York Times article by Sarah Kershaw called Look Closely, Doctor, See the Camera. A National Post article called Reality Bites from 2008. IMDb and Wikipedia.
I'm very relieved because you've been throwing out a lot of facts without citing any sources.
There you have it. I'm not making it all up.
Just some.
You'll never know which parts. In order to understand the impact of Truman Show delusion, let's first discuss its namesake. In June of 1998, Peter Weir's The Truman Show was released. While not technically a horror film, I think most of us would agree that the premise is quite horrifying, but one that strangely some of us can perhaps relate to. The first iteration was called The Malcolm Show, set in Manhattan with a much darker tone and intended to star Gary Oldman. And it's actually really interesting because the writer wrote, I think, 16 drafts of the film before the director thought that it was okay to move into production. Like, there was a lot of back and forth, and the director was really trying to push it from a very, very dark film to more of a comedic, quirky movie.
That was the director. Wait, the director wrote it?
No, a different writer wrote it.
Okay, so the writer and the director collaborated through 16 drafts.
Sort of, because different directors were brought in, but by the end of it, it had gone through 16 drafts.
Which honestly is not a crazy amount of drafts.
Yeah, that's kind of standard.
It's actually it's kind of a vanilla number.
Yeah, yeah. But as we all know, the film stars Jim Carrey, Laura Linney, and Ed Harris. Though it's interesting to note that Jim Carrey and Ed Harris never actually met on set. They never filmed together.
Huh. Yeah, that makes sense.
So it makes sense, but also Jim Carrey had finished his scenes before Ed Harris was even brought on to play the role of Kristoff.
Wow.
This was initially due to the fact that Kristoff was first played by Dennis Hopper, who left 2 months into production due to creative differences.
Wow. So he was in production for 2 months. So they probably filmed a lot of shit with him.
Yeah, I think they filmed from like December till April of the production year. So they filmed for quite a while.
I get it. When you're dealing with a lot of A-list celebrities, unfortunately, their opinions matter because they can just throw their weight around.
Yeah.
Which is dumb.
So Ed Harris actually went on to win a Golden Globe for supporting actor and an Oscar nomination.
I thought you were going to say Dennis Hopper won regardless.
Jim Carrey also won a Golden Globe. The Truman Show is nominated for 3 Oscars, including Best Director and Best Screenplay. But it took director Peter Weir and Carrey a bit to find their groove as well. Jim Carrey took a massive pay cut for the role. Typically at this time, he was paid $20 million for a film, and he only took 12 for The Truman Show.
What a champ. How does even someone live on $12 million for a single job?
I know, it's crazy. This is often attributed to the script and Carrey wanting to prove himself with a dramatic role. Weir was actually initially considering Robin Williams for Truman Burbank, but wanted Carrey after seeing Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, which to me is kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah. Like Ace Ventura, it's a wild, wacky movie that is also not aged well.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I can't imagine seeing a guy talking with his butt.
Yeah.
And then being like, that's the guy.
Yeah. Like, to me, and I know this is controversial, like Ace Ventura is on the bottom rung of the Jim Carrey spectrum for me personally. And The Truman Show is on the top of it. And there's lots of stuff in the middle, you know?
I don't know.
I know. People really love that movie.
The problem is a lot of people look at it through, rose-tinted glasses. It holds a special nostalgic place because this is a lot of people's, growing up movie.
Yeah.
And when you're a kid watching some guy pop out of a rhino's butt is hilarious. I mean, it's still pretty funny, actually. Jim Carrey was always just like a really funny guy that brought so much laughter.
Yeah.
But then you see him in like when he starts dipping into like horror-ish elements like the Cable Guy.
Yeah.
It's like, excuse me, you're supposed to be child-friendly. You're supposed to be childhood-friendly, and this is not that.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why I love him in this role, because I actually do think he was the right choice for casting, personally.
Yes.
But he also, he has Jim Carrey quirks, which I love, and I think I'm a big fan of him. But, in the film, The Grinch, or, he has, certain things, mannerisms that he does in every film.
His whole body is so crazy.
Yeah, and he's so great at it. And in this film, I think he only dipped into that in the car scene when he's driving with Laura Linney and he's trying to escape, and they drive over the bridge and he's going around that roundabout and around the roundabout. And he has this moment where he breaks into it with that crazy Jim Carrey face and he's like, blah, at her. but it's only once. And the rest of it, he's so sort of charming and docile, and it's just like a different, I feel like it pushed him in a different direction. It was really cool to see that.
Well, there's also his like catchphrase
Yeah.
of "In case I don't see you."
Yeah, that's a little Jim Carrey-esque.
Yeah, it's just the smile at the end.
Yeah.
This also happens in what's the movie about the schizophrenia one? That's not actually schizophrenia. It's split personality. Me, Myself, and Irene.
Oh, yeah.
That's a adult comedy. It's like American Pie level humor.
Right.
Maybe a little more advanced. It's been years since I've seen this. It's definitely a comedy, but there's more dramatic elements to it because there's gravitas in that film a little. But he just every so often breaks into this like physical comedy that he has absolutely perfected over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's a master of what he does.
It's just such a shame. Like I just want to see more of him as the Mask.
Okay, so Alan, what do you think the budget was for the Truman Show?
Like 500 million?
60 million.
Really?
12 of which went to Jim Carrey.
Wow.
And how much do you think it brought in?
Billions.
264 million.
I mean, so also these are 90s numbers.
Yeah. You have to, do
This
the
was
math on it.
pre-Avatar. He was already up against some real stiff competition. I mean, Titanic had come out just the year before.
Yeah.
And so the precedent for what a movie needs to make to be wildly successful, like movies like that really just screwed the industry across the board.
But I still think the Truman Show has like 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like I think it's sort of beloved, even though and what I really love about the Truman Show, not to get on a side tangent here, but and this is going to sound like a pun, but I'm not meaning it to be. It's actually quite simple and quite contained. When you watch it back, and neither of us had seen it for a very long time, it's simpler than you think, than you remember, I feel like. It's very contained. Everything about it is, of course, there's the world that they create, but they sort of create it in a way that feels as small as the actual world would be for Truman. And the script is simple. It's kind of a short film. Like, it's just how you get what's happening right away. It's not like this long, drawn-out, tension-built thing. Everything happens pretty fast. And it just feels like this little slice of something, and I appreciate that about it.
It's interesting. I feel like if this movie was made today, it would be presented in a very different way.
I agree.
There would be so much more behind the scenes drama and just like, I don't know, a peek behind the veil of like how it all works. Like we're just presented with this idea of a guy for 30 years living in this dome.
And we get just enough of the behind the scenes.
Right. It's everything is done by the actors.
Yeah.
But there's never any discussion about how these crazy weather effects are happening.
Yeah.
How all these cameras are being put into place. What do they do for sound? Just like all these like little details that I feel like as a more aware audience member, because granted we work in the film industry.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are just used to seeing the spectacle, seeing the cracks because the cracks are fun.
Yeah.
But Truman Show doesn't present those. It just kind of hides them.
Yeah.
Every so often you run into one, but it's always as a plot device. Like when at the very end, when Jim Carrey's boat hits the edge of the dome.
Oh my God, it's the best moment. I love it. It's so well done. And like, you see how simple that is, right?
Yep.
And it's so powerful. Like I always get chills when we watch that moment. It's just like, what smart storytelling.
And, maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but the ending of the movie, it wraps up with such a nice little bow that's still open-ended, which is...
Right, we don't see him and the girl meet. We just see he leaves the dome and the girl leaves her house, but they don't make out, right? It just like, to your point, it's kind of nice. It's kind of, it's like, and now it's, what happens now is up to him. We don't follow him anymore.
You don't get bogged down in all of the legalese about how this is happening. Like you get protesters that are against it on a fundamental level, but it's also like, how are they doing this to this poor person?
Because you get one line where they say, this is the first production studio to ever adopt a human. And that's it. And that explains it all.
And they never harp on it. You know, after he gets out, it's just like, oh,
Or he's not seeing
out.
them in court.
That's it. Not, you are our little slave. Get back, monkey dance.
Yeah. The other thing that's interesting, obviously they didn't do this, but the director had really wanted to make the film experience in theaters meta. And so he wanted to build in a moment where the projectionist would cut and it would switch to cameras that were planted in the theater and include like the audience watching on the screen and then cut back to the film. And obviously that would have been like insanely expensive to install cameras and technical, but they were trying to like think of a way to bring it into the real world.
That's actually a really interesting idea to think about. This is still during a time when, I don't know, I'm going to throw out an arbitrary number, 90%, probably even more, of all projections were film.
Yeah.
How would you even do that?
Yeah.
Like, they have digital projectors, do they? I don't know. In 1998?
I don't know how they would have done it.
I know they had digital cameras.
Yeah.
But they weren't great.
Yeah.
So to interface all that, there's a lot of technical hurdles.
Yeah. But it just kind of gives you a sense of how they were thinking about the movie.
It's neat.
Also, just a fun fact, one of my favorite directors of all time, Brian De Palma, was initially set to direct the film before Peter Weir took over. For anyone who needs a little refresher, The Truman Show tells the story of Truman Burbank, played by Jim Carrey, who was officially adopted by a television studio after an unwanted pregnancy. Truman is the subject of an always-on reality program that streams every second of his life to viewers. In the world of the film, the television station uses 5,000 cameras to cover every element of Truman's life and present a relatable and honest program for viewers. Truman lives in a giant bubble dome where everything inside is a set that centers around him, and every single person is an actor. Truman finds out that he's living in a reality show that's being streamed around the clock and across the globe. There's actually, which like is just so horrifying, but there is actually a Twilight Zone episode from 1989 called Special Service that predates, obviously, The Truman Show with a similar concept. Special Service tells the story of a man who, like Truman, discovers he is constantly being recorded and streamed as part of a popular television program. J. Michael Straczynski wrote the episode. The episode is used as satire to make fun of the way humans believe the world revolves around them. There's also a short film from 1968 with a similar plot, The Secret Cinema, starring Amy Vane. The Truman Show is also credited with predicting the reality show boom that followed 2 years after its release with the first episode of Survivor. So I think that's really interesting because this is going to play into the delusion part, which we're about to get to, that in this place and time, 1998, reality TV is not really a thing yet.
Wait, so Survivor was the first?
So Candid Camera, actually, I guess, is technically the first. And there's some sort of one-off things. The American Sportsman, An American Family, Real People, Cops. Real World predates Survivor.
Oh, wait.
Road Rules.
Oh, that was... Really?
Mm-hmm.
That was
The Challenge.
That was like early 2000s.
Early 90s.
Huh.
Big Brother. But I think Who Wants to Marry a Millionaire? But I think Survivor really changed the game of reality TV.
Sure.
You know, there's like a handful of shows that predate it, but when the first episode of Survivor aired in the year 2000, like, think about the landscape of reality TV now, you know? For any die-hard Truman Show fans, there's actually a 30-minute mockumentary from the set. So Peter Weir actually sent a doc crew into kind of the world and had them interview the actors in the town as their personas, some of which made it into the final film, but the rest of the footage was turned into a 30-minute package that ran on Nick at Night. The term Truman Show Delusion was coined 10 years after the release of the film by Joel and Ian Gold, a psychiatrist and a neurophilosopher, respectively. They're brothers.
Neurophilosopher?
Yes, at McGill University in Canada.
It's a rock and roll title.
Though it's not officially sanctioned in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of the American Psychiatric Association, there are documented cases of this delusion. The true scope of any disorder is hard to know, but there are at least hundreds of reported cases. Joel Gold was a psychiatrist at Bellevue Hospital in New York City when he first came across a case of the Truman Show delusion. Quoting from Joel Gold in the National Post article, quote, "It's really a question of the extent of the delusion. The delusions we typically treat are narrow. There is Capgras delusion, where someone will think his family has been replaced by doubles, or the Fragoli delusion, where someone believes that one person is persecuting him, a doctor, mailman, butcher. The Truman Show delusion, though, involves the entire world," end quote. So let's quickly define what a delusion is. Essentially, a delusion is thought to be a belief held by a patient that is not based in reality and has proof to the contrary. So even though you could prove to somebody that, no, you're not on a reality TV show, they still believe that that's the case. One of Gold's patients traveled to New York City after 9/11 because he was worried the attacks were just a plot twist in his own reality show, and he wanted to confirm if the towers still stood.
Oh, wow. So he just thought that this was just
good TV.
Good TV.
A different patient had been working as an intern on a reality TV program and thought that everything they did was being tracked by cameras, including voting in the presidential election in 2004.
Wait, was that the presidential election?
No.
In 2004?
It was Bush.
Was this the Bush Al Gore?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was that was the presidential election.
Sure. Okay.
That was when our country took a twist.
Plot twist. When he yelled that Bush was, quote, a Judas, he was taken to Gold's care at Bellevue. Another patient had traveled to the Federal Building in Manhattan's financial district in an effort to seek asylum from the show he thought he was being forced to star in. Finally, yet another patient thought he needed to climb to the top of the Statue of Liberty to escape his show. He's been quoted as saying, quote, "I realized that I was and am the center, the focus of attention by millions and millions of people. My family and everyone I knew was and are actors in a script, a charade whose entire purpose is to make me the focus of the world's attention," end quote. The entire reason that Truman Show delusion is named as it is, beyond the obvious, is that 3 of the first 5 patients that Joel Gold initially saw for similar conditions all named the movie while being examined. In the next 2 years, almost 50 patients were referred to Gold. After the paper came out, so the brothers wrote a paper, dozens of more patients tried to contact them. So kind of the general timeline here is it's like 2002, 2004, around that time. Joel Gold, who's based in New York, starts being referred to these patients. He's at Bellevue, and then he becomes kind of like the guy who's digging into this, so doctors are referring these patients to him. His brother, who is this neurophilosopher, whatever he is, in McGill University in New York.
Neuromancer.
After a while, they decide to write a paper, a psychiatric paper about this, right? And then eventually, I believe they write a book.
It's also easy to see some kind of correlation where some guy comes up with this like hot new theory that's based on this thing that is like that's like very popular at the time. And then you have all of these psychological disorders, which probably vary quite a bit, but they don't currently fit into any established mold.
Mm-hmm.
So, but now you have this nice new one, and they're probably shoving all these people into this fancy new box because they have enough similar symptoms.
Well, I would disagree with that on one piece, which is that these people who are coming in are naming the film.
Right.
Which is why they're being put in a box.
But this was after he published his findings.
No, before. Even before.
Okay. That's fair.
But I do think it's not so much that they're putting people in a box who have random conditions. I think in the kind of the point of the episode is that for the first time, people have always had delusions again, right? For the first time, those delusions are taking the form of reality TV because reality TV has not really existed before. And coupled with the boom of reality TV and the film The Truman Show, people who are going to have delusional beliefs anyway, that's kind of what they're latching onto.
Right. So previously, people would just be paranoid. People are always watching me. But now you have this very acceptable reason for being watched. Because it's television, and television is entertaining. Why would people...
Like in the 50s, someone who had the same mental disorder might be like, I'm being chased by fucking Russian spies.
Yes.
Now they think they're on the Truman Show. But it's because it's the place and time of where we are in society.
Okay. Yes, I agree.
Okay. I also want to say it's important to pause on the fact that the patients are naming the film, because that means that the film itself directly sort of influenced these delusions. Didn't cause them, right? But skinned them, if you will. In the film, as Truman starts to understand that something isn't right about his reality, we can see him slowly start to question his surroundings. He becomes consumed with this, paranoid, confused, angry, right? It kind of mimics reality there.
Sure.
The New York Times article by Sarah Kershaw makes the point that in the 21st century, extreme anxiety and psychosis can have a distinct lens to it. For example, fear of the water supply being compromised, fear of a microchip in your brain, alien abduction, fear of intense surveillance, and or being on a reality show against your will. Obviously, these are specific to the time and place, right? These fears wouldn't have existed before those technologies existed.
What do you mean? Contaminated water has been around forever.
Yeah, but there was kind of like a fear of that going on.
In like the Middle Ages, you used to dump a body down the enemy's well and you poison the whole town.
So there's probably the same sort of fear happening back then, too.
I mean, you don't have to use a person. You can just throw a goat down there or something.
The point is that generally, fears or delusions reflect the current fears of society, right? And the current pop cultural zeitgeist. I also read a New Yorker article that did a great job explaining this in layman's terms. So the article is by Andrew Marantz. It's called Unreality Star. Still available on the website. Definitely recommend that you go read it. It was excellent. But it unpacks the case of Nick Lotz. So Nick Lotz was a student at Ohio University and genuinely believed that he was being followed and recorded by TV cameras at all times.
Okay.
It all started in 2007 when he felt isolated and alone at school. This soon developed into paranoia that people were posting photos and videos of him online making fun of him, though he never actually found any. But he went to school, right? He was kind of othered, wasn't fitting in, started drinking, started self-medicating, and then kind of became delusional and thinking that all of these classmates who weren't really bonding with him were actually like posting videos of him online.
But that's just not true.
Right.
Okay.
His parents tried to get him into rehab, and he agreed to go if he was allowed to go to a music festival.
Seems reasonable.
Yeah. He went with his sister, so I think that's why they were like, okay, you have a chaperone. At the festival, while on drugs, and during a Dave Matthews Band set, he was convinced he had figured out his entire life. Quoting from the New Yorker article, quote, "Suddenly Lotz solved the puzzle of his life. Since starting college, he had been the star of a reality TV show. The network had kept the cameras hidden, as in Candid Camera and Punk'd. That night was supposed to be the finale. All he had to do was call his father, who'd find him in the crowd, lead him on stage, and present him with a check for $1 million.
Wow, it's a good deal.
Lotz took out his cell phone, but he was too strung out to place the call. It was too late. He'd missed his chance to make the cameras turn off," end quote. Later on, back at rehab, he took the therapist's explanation that the patients will be watched as a direct acknowledgement that he was on a reality TV show, right? So the nurse kind of onboarding the rehab people were like, of course, we're going to be watching you guys at all times. And he was like, you and the rest of the world, right?
Yeah. He was already used to it, though.
Eventually, he left the program and he went back home, where he would even take to leaving his laptop open because he was convinced that there was cameras inside and he wanted the audience to get a better view of him.
Okay. What?
Yeah. So once he's kind of back home, he's slipping even further into this delusion, because I should say the rehab programs were for drugs, not for sort of like mental rehab. So when he's back home, he's leaving laptops. He's trying to sort of play up his role. He even thought that the production had hardwired some sort of speaker into his head so that the audience could hear his thoughts. He lost 50 pounds because he thought the producers were telepathically telling him to look better on camera. Quoting from the New Yorker article, quote, "Psychotic disorders typically emerge between the ages of 18 and 30. One such condition, schizophrenia, affects approximately 1% of the population, a figure that appears to have remained stable across epochs and continents," end quote. Nick eventually came to outgrow the delusion in a sense. He just sort of figured out at some point, like he didn't this is from 2007, but he didn't, at the time the article was written, say like, oh, that never happened. He just sort of said, I think it's over now. Like, he still believed it, but he believed that it had ended. And then he eventually spent an hour on the phone with Dr. Gold.
I thought you were going to say, and then he eventually found all of the episodes on YouTube.
No.
That'd be so wild.
It would be wild.
I'd be upset.
Yeah. Of course. Truman was upset.
He was perturbed. I feel like most people would be far more upset.
I feel like he was upset. Truman?
Yeah, his feathers were ruffled.
Yeah.
I would have gone on a murder spree. You kidding me?
He's so cute at the end with his red shoes. I love his outfit.
You love his red shoes.
I do.
You make a lot of comments about his red shoes.
I love them.
Yeah.
I think it's charming.
But no, I mean, what is the normal reaction to finding out that your entire life is a lie and
it's a great question.
Everyone around you is in on the joke?
I mean, the thing to me that's, and again, kind of going back to the Truman Show not showing you everything, right? The parts that are so disturbing is that you understand, because of the context, that Truman has sex with a woman who he thinks is his wife, but is a paid actor. That, like, it's
That's
shit like
never
that.
Happened.
No, but he's not aware of it. Like, it's very dark when you think about, like, all of the little things that happen in his life, like all of the things that he does when he's alone. He thinks he's alone. People are watching. When he was 7 or 8, it's just like, it's very dark to think about that stuff.
They do kind of glance over a lot of things. Like the fact that it's a 24-hour live broadcast, quote unquote, unedited. Yet there's some human things that are never even discussed.
Yeah, exactly. And to me, it's like leaving that to our imagination, because I think those are the first things people are going to think about, makes them grosser, Yeah.
And he's like 30, He's
lived a full life.
I mean, honestly, it was kind of a gift. If we're on team giant media corporation, that he got out when he was just over 30.
Now he's boring?
He's hit a lot, like all of the growing up milestones.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, after this is when people typically start to like, quote unquote, settle down.
Right.
So.
Well, you could see them pushing him to like have a kid, because that would be the next thing.
Yeah. But like, again, how interesting is he going to be at 65?
It depends.
It does depend. But like, how interesting is he going to be at 85?
Yeah.
Probably not very.
I just read a book that I didn't expect to have any correlation to this movie at all in this episode, but it is a book called Never Let Me Go. It's a dystopian novel, and I'm not going to spoil anything about it because I actually think everybody should go read it. I think it's incredible, but it has this similar question. It made me think about Truman's lack of free will, because even though he has, I'm sure, some minute level of free will in his role in this life, he really doesn't, right? Because they're kind of, he falls in love with this one girl and they push him towards this other girl. They get, everything is being manipulative. Right. Everything around him is being manipulated all the time.
The one woman that he does fall in love with was not scripted, so she got removed from the entire simulation.
Right. It's just like, that's also the horrifying part to me, is like, this whole life that you've lived, you've actually not had the ownership of it that you thought you did.
Yeah.
You were being produced, but you weren't aware of it. Like, that's horrifying.
Sure.
Are you real, Alan, or are you an actor?
No comment.
I'm going to quote again from the New Yorker article by Andrew Marantz. Quote, "If form is fixed, content is not. Between 1995 and 2004, the International Study of Psychotic Symptoms, a survey of 1,100 patients from 7 countries, found that the mind supplies the contours of delusions and culture fills in the details. Grandiose schizophrenics from largely Christian countries often claim to be prophets or gods, but sufferers in Pakistan, a Muslim country, rarely do. In Shanghai, paranoid people report being pricked by poisoned needles. In Taipei, they are possessed by spirits. Shifts in technology have caused the content of delusions to change over the years. In the 1940s, the Japanese controlled American minds with radio waves. In the 50s, the Soviets accomplished this with satellites. In the 70s, the CIA implanted computer chips into people's brains, end quote. Again, it's really the theme of this, right? It's important to understand that the nature of delusions evolves depending on society and pop culture. So it's kind of more so just a testament to the power of the film to have created this sort of subgenre of delusion than anything else, right? Thousands of films come out every year, but rarely do films have hundreds of cases of delusions associated with them.
I do wonder, and I'm sure this study was done by somebody somewhere, what if, how many people are reporting this kind of delusion who didn't see the film?
But then maybe it's being categorized a little bit differently because it's not Truman Show delusion, it's reality show delusion.
Sure.
Or who knows? For example, turbosis is the delusion that one is covered in sand, which certainly is regional.
I'm sorry, covered in sand?
Right. So it's way more prevalent in the Middle East than in the U.S.
Okay.
The New York Times article by Sarah Kershaw also points to another example. In West Bengal, India, some people who were bitten by dogs had started to believe that they were pregnant with puppies.
Okay, I believe that one. But covered in sand.
Like you have sand on you all the time, Like you're wiping sand off of yourself.
Huh. Okay.
I'm going to quote from psychiatrist Peter Weir. Quote, in the 40s, psychotic patients would express delusions about their brains being controlled by radio waves.
He goes by Peener.
Now delusional patients commonly complain about implanted computer chips, end quote.
Sure. I mean, yeah, look at COVID and how everyone thought that vaccines implanted microchips that they could feel.
1,000%. That's a great example. Also, now it feels like so many more people are delusional, but yeah.
Yeah, but that's also just because the internet gives idiots megaphones.
But yes, and also think about how like TikTok amplifies shit like that. If you have a conspiracy theory, someone who's delusional can really latch onto that, right? Like right now there's conspiracy theories that Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, who are, I don't know if you know who they are, Alan, but Travis Kelce is an NFL player and Taylor Swift is Taylor Swift. They're in a relationship. And there's these conspiracy theories out there that for some reason they're in like a PR relationship to get Biden elected again.
Oh, yeah.
It's like that kind of stuff that like, it's just bonkers, I mean, not that it could be a PR relationship, but I don't believe that it's for the love of Joe Biden.
I was reading something the other day about how the vocal minority ruins so many things.
Yeah. Like what?
So like, an example would be like, well, the vocal minority being
people who are loud, but in the minority.
But yeah, a very small group of people. But because the internet lets you talk to the rest of the world simultaneously,
yeah.
If you speak with enough enthusiasm, confidence, and just like proper diction, way more people listen than should.
Sure.
And so like so a great example of this was the whole vaccines cause autism.
Sure.
And this was started for whatever fucking reason.
Yeah.
And then all these other people started popping out of the woodwork saying like, oh my God, it's the same thing for me, simply because like it gave them something to talk about. They got so impassioned about it.
Yeah.
And confidence is contagious.
Sure.
So they just start speaking about this, and then all of a sudden they have this massive following that was started with effectively nothing. And then now and then you have this topic of vaccines. Are they safe? Is part of a worldwide conversation when it never should have been.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also, when you have people who are going through something mentally, right? Or in a bad place, or going through some sort of condition and are somewhat vulnerable, they latch on to things like this. Like, I've had people in my life who are awesome, amazing people, but in dark times have latched on to beliefs and delusions and even conspiracy theories that I thought was, some of the smartest people I know. But it's kind of like a symptom of a thing, right? And that's what we're talking about. So all the love to everybody, and, keep questioning and go see a doctor. It's generally believed that the Truman Show acted as an answer to patients who are experiencing other conditions. It gave explanation and presumed context to the feelings they were having. Even the Goulds don't think of the Truman Show delusion as a condition on its own. Rather, quote, a variance on known persecutory and grandiose delusions, end quote. Gould classifies the Truman Show delusion as a symptom of psychosis. But the brothers have gotten some negative pushback from other doctors, who don't necessarily disagree with them, but rather don't think it's so unusual for patients to identify with a particular character or movie. And, I think that's true. That's, the point. And the point of this also isn't to say that it's so special. It's kind of just to talk about this moment in time when this was a thing. And I'm going to admit this now. I certainly have, I would say, many intrusive thoughts sometimes. It was more prevalent when I was a kid, but thoughts that, people can hear my thoughts, or people are watching me, or there's cameras set up. I had quite a phase of that at one point. Even now, sometimes I can get suspicious that people can read my thoughts, and I'll think something like, okay, tap my shoulder if you can, give me a sign. And I've talked to a few friends about this as we've been researching this. We have one friend in particular who had quite an intense version of this when he was growing up. Another friend also told me she did as well. So I don't think it's so unusual, especially for our generation, again, growing up in sort of this reality TV world when you're growing up, you're trying to explain things even as an adult sometimes, to think, okay, it's like this surveillance mindset.
I did not have this. I did not grow up with reality TV.
There you go.
Instead, I grew up with Ninja Turtles and Street Sharks.
There you go. Whichever side of the debate we all land on, it's sort of irrelevant to the topic today. The point for us is that the Truman Show had a lasting impact on society, no matter which way you look at it. And we can't take for granted the power of art and pop culture. In 2024, there are indeed reality shows that you can watch for 24 hours a day. Big Brother, for instance. There are also shows that literally use surveillance cameras mounted in bedrooms to document what the inhabitants of the summer house or winter houses are doing at all hours of the day and night.
That seems very specific.
It's from the show Summer House and Winter House. Part of the heaviness of the Truman Show are the moments we don't see as the audience, right? But in reality shows, that's what they want to catch. They want to catch the two people having sex or the weird shit that they're doing. But it's kind of this weird flip where now it's like, obviously it's consensual. These people are aware of that they're being taped. But it's kind of this bizarre thing where we minimize it, right, as we expect access to people, especially in the reality TV worlds. So anyway, I don't know what the takeaway is of this, except to say that I think reality TV, I enjoy it. I actually watch it quite a bit, but I do think it can take a toll on you when you're watching a lot of it.
You don't say.
And I think it can be dehumanizing. I also think that the movie The Truman Show had a large impact on a generation, really.
Abby, did you just have a breakthrough?
No. I'm not going to blame any of my issues on reality TV.
All right.
But I do think sometimes it's good to turn it off and listen to music instead,
Or watch anything else.
Yeah, read a book.
Great.
Go on a walk.
Play a game.
Depends on the game. What's your big takeaway from this episode?
My big takeaway is that The Truman Show is a freaking baller movie.
Baller.
I hadn't watched in many years.
Yeah.
It's great. It comes from an era of I don't know. This is a very biased statement, but the 90s cranked out some incredible movies.
I have to say there's also this like this, I don't know how to define them, but films like Being John Malkovich, The Truman Show, Adaptation, which all seem to have come out kind of around the same time-ish, but like the same kind of decade. And it's like this meta quirky, but not comedy, but not drama. It's like they're so specific, and I just have like a deep love for them.
Sure.
I think they're really like a unique little mini micro subgenre of film.
What would you call that genre?
Like meta dramedies? Madramedies?
I'd say psychological comedies.
But all of them are sort of meta to the world of film. Like Being John Malkovich is about John Malkovich, right? Then you have Adaptation, which is about writing films. And then you have The Truman Show, which is about like making content. Like it's, there's a layer of meta-ness to it.
I'd say fourth wall intrusive comedies.
Ooh. Dramedies.
Fourth wall intrusive dramedies.
Perfection.
That's your favorite genre outside of horror.
It's not my favorite genre, but I have a love for it.
And The Little Mermaid. I'm honestly surprised that The Truman Show never went on to have any sequels.
Yeah.
Or
spin-off shows.
I don't know. It just seems rife. But we're also coming from the future where everything has to be a franchise.
Everything has to be 3 hours and a franchise and a spin-off. Yeah. That's why I also respect it a lot, because I feel like it didn't overstate its own importance,
I mean, yeah, now they can't even come up with any new stories. Now they're telling fucking Napoleon.
Oh, as always, you guys, thank you so much for being here. I know this one was a little bit different, but we have a deep love for The Truman Show, and it was fun to watch it and talk through how film in general impacts real life, kind of the opposite of what we usually do when we talk about the history of horror. Flipped it on its head for this one.
It really is so easy. It really would have been so easy to remake this movie as a horror film.
Yeah.
Just someone's entire life, one day, the veil is dropped and everything is a lie and it all comes crumbling down.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly think I like the way that they handled it, because I think it would have been, I don't know, it feels more unique this way with this tone versus as something that's darker.
Well, I think in the film, they really drove home how Truman was very beloved. He was never being made fun of.
Yeah.
Like his comedic behaviors were more endearing than, despite the fact that like he was a comedic guy.
Yeah. People
were laughing with him rather than at him.
Yeah.
And, Ed Harris with his God mic, they have a big conversation about this, about how Truman means so much to so many people. Whereas, it's very easy to imagine someone just being laughed at. Someone is the butt of a joke. Someone is the rat in a maze that the whole world is watching.
Yeah.
And
totally.
that's where the horror comes from.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's almost like a Stepford Wife in a way. Like the fact that it's not a horror and it should be, it's like a little bit creepier to watch because everybody's like fake smiling through it,
Yeah. And then just like the cracks immediately get steamrolled over.
Yeah.
And you move on.
Right. Because it's like it's like such a production company, but whatever. Yeah. It's fascinating. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. It has been a pleasure, as always. We will be back very soon with some darker content for you. I can promise that. Stay spooky, stay safe. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like some bonus content, consider supporting us on Patreon to access our patron-exclusive podcast, Horror Movie Club.
Also, head to lunaticsproject.com to check out our spooky merch and apparel.
You can find us at Lunatics Project on Twitter and TikTok, and The Lunatics Project on Instagram and YouTube, where you'll find our short horror films, cemetery tours, and so much more.
And please rate and review. A little feedback goes a long way to help us grow and get more content out there.
Our cover art is by Pilar Kep, and musical bumpers are by Michaela Papa and Jordan Moser.